I am Julia Pierrepont, and I'm the writer, director, and producer of this movie, Her Missing Twin. It was an amazing experience, I have to say. It was pretty extraordinary because what I set out to do with this is make a movie that had an element of healing, an element of joy to it. There's so many families that are dealing with loss, whether it's an older person or a baby or a child or a parent. There's a lot of tragedy and a lot of pain going on, and I wanted to create a movie that had just a lovely inspirational opportunity to help people through the healing process. Movies can be wonderful medicine, and I think something like this brings you inside the life and the psyche and the heart of somebody like Jenny Markham and Connor Markham and even Sheriff Cowell and Nurse Kelly. These are characters who are complex and three-dimensional, and they have important emotional motivations for the reason why they do things. And some of them might do things that we think are criminal or horrific, but or horrible, but at the same time they have a motivation that they believe is right. So I wanted to show a very complicated story that at the end ended up very simple. I certainly believe in happy endings, especially now when we all need a happy ending. So from my perspective, it was really interesting to go on this journey, and I'd love to bring you all on this journey of discovery, of self-awareness, of healing, of bonding. Just was a great experience. It's actually my third movie during the pandemic. I've done, this is my second feature, and I also did a documentary. Well, the first feature was Lead the Way, which I produced, directed by Richard Anderson, a marvelous picture, about a brilliant but blind Asian American man with Asperger's syndrome who is running for president of the United States. And he's brilliant, so he has a whole quiver full of solutions that actually work. So it's a very interesting political rom-com, and I think that's quite fun. This one takes a different turn. This is much more of a thriller, but it kind of creeps up on you. You don't know it's a thriller from the start. It's sort of more of a sweet family drama, and then you start realizing something is amiss. Something is happening and you're not quite sure what is happening, and I wanted to keep the audience a little off base so that they didn't figure out too soon what was going on, and take them on a little journey. And also what was really important to me is, as a female director, it's so difficult to get the opportunity to direct. And so I wanted to make sure that when I had that opportunity, I gave the opportunity for other women to really do what they do best. So in front of the camera, most of the cast is women. We have one male lead. All of the others are female, pretty much. We have, we had a female gaffer. We had a female camera operator. We embraced diversity on this project. That's really important to me. So we have probably 20 nationalities and races and nationalities, and people who just came together to make a wonderful movie. And they're extraordinarily hardworking. They're extraordinarily professional. It's astonishing to me the level of quality that this crew can deliver on such a tight budget and a tight time frame. Just remarkable. They really did me proud. Absolutely. It's so important in this day and age after the Me Too movement, and women are really coming into their own power again. I think, that started really in the 60s and then sort of fizzled out for a little while, but now we're coming back gangbusters, and it's a really great time to be a woman in entertainment because really our voices can be heard. And, I've been around a while. I'm not 25 years old anymore, so it's great to be able to direct a movie and yet have all my life experience to flow into it, to have that a little more wisdom, to have a little more insight, and to bring that into a situation where I feel I'm in a position to really draw out extraordinary performances from the cast and make them feel safe, that they can be vulnerable, they can really show that depth and dive into it and know that I can bring them back and that they're going to be safe and that it's a safe space for them to work in. And that's a real pleasure and an honor for me to be trusted by them and to work so deeply and collaboratively with extraordinarily talented actors. It's been a real pleasure, I have to say. Elena Huffman is just extraordinary. Just a beautiful way, that touch of sorrow behind her eyes. It's just a beautiful quality that she brings out on screen. And Josh Murray did a great job being, a powerful, supportive husband, but also dealing with his own issues in a unique way. And he brought a lot of emotional value into it. And Colleen Greenlaw, really extraordinary, playing the sheriff, just, very bold in her choices, kind of fearlessly running into it, and really showing the vulnerable side and the tough side. Very interesting combination. And Noelle is vulnerable and so powerful in her performance as the nurse. She really brings it, and she really doesn't hold back, and I deeply appreciate that. So all of them, just exceptional. Cece Lau, and I really can't imagine a better cast. I'm very, very lucky. It was very important to me to show that women had agency and that they were capable of getting into their own problems and getting out of their own problems. They're, not perfect. They make mistakes. They might have obsessions. They might break the law. Women are complicated. I wanted three-dimensional characters who had very interesting lives. And these performers were so exceptional. They were able to bring that to the screen in a really gratifying way that just fleshed out these characters and brought them to life very powerfully. And I think it's important. We need to see more women in powerful roles. We need to see women leading movies. We need to see them in the leading roles. So with men as support characters, it's really essential to be able to go back and forth with that in different films. And I think nothing's more empowering to other women and to young women and children to see a strong woman who gets out of her own problems, who figures out how to save herself, who works through it, works through the problem, finds her own courage, and saves the day. There's a Wonder Woman in all of us, and I love to show it. And the twins, Grace and Ava Scarola, just darling. They've been on General Hospital for years, but I think this is a really interesting opportunity for them to break out and do something probably quite different and really bring it in an interesting way. They had some really poignant moments where they just show a deeper side of their characters in a really charming way. So extraordinarily great talent across the board. And I think it was important for them to see their TV mom being a hero and saving them. And their TV dad, of course, was also a hero. But at the end of the day, when he was injured, it was the mom who had to save him, who was that mama bear, who just ran in there and found her courage and found her agency and made it happen. Well, every child at some point in their life typically has an imaginary friend. It's a phase I think almost all children go through where it's like a sounding board for who you are. You're developing your own identity, And it gives you an opportunity to kind of bounce that off someone else. Even though, of course, it's you, at the same time, it feels like someone else. And in this instance, it was integral to the story because that imaginary friend actually ends up being something very different and that has an almost kind of mystical and spiritual connection. And what I find so interesting about twins, and I was originally a biochemist, a scientist, so I've studied a lot. I was in pre-med, and I love the fact that studies show that twins, even when they're separated at birth, they actually maintain extraordinary similarities. They end up in the same kind of jobs, they're the same sort of people, they buy the same cars, they marry similar people, they might live in the same town. It's exceptional how much their lives, converge, even if they were raised separately. And, there's some discussion that there's kind of a metaphysical bond that's unique to twins, where there's that connection, that almost sort of Jungian, unconscious connections that bonds twins, whether they live together or not. And I also wanted to point out that for a mother, particularly, mother who carries a child in her womb for 9 months, has an extraordinarily unique bond with her. It's very powerful. Mothers know this better than anyone, that no one in the world could ever have that same kind of bond than a mother does. If, of course, you're a warm mother, if you're a loving mother, you can sever that bond if you're not a good mother. But if you're a good and loving mother and have that extraordinary biological shared experience, then there's nothing like it in the world. And I think that you hear about people who say, oh, I knew when someone died, or I knew when something happened. And that's happened to me, and I wanted that to be a part of this movie and to explore that a little bit, and that's part of what we did. So it was quite interesting. This is really a mystical bond that sort of defies analysis or defies scientific explanation. Certainly we know it exists, but we don't know what it is. When you somehow communicate, whether people talk about ESP, they talk about you communicate across a distance, you're somehow linked to someone, and we don't know what that is, but we know it happens so many times, many places all over the world. So it's just a fascinating phenomenon, and I wanted that to be part of this story. The way the parents, Jenny and Connor, were able to be extraordinarily present for each other, that they were able to be loving and healed each other, were there for each other through this horrific tragedy, and found ways to be impish and loving and fun-loving and sexy together and saucy together. I think it's very important, the whole idea of sexual healing. We don't see enough of that. We don't realize that for many people, that kind of a bond with someone, especially your life mate, your husband, your wife, having that ability to bond with them really deeply in a fulfilling and lovely and amazing sexual way is so powerful. And we don't hear that enough. We don't talk about that enough. People think it's either all recreational or all wild. There's something in between that's extraordinary and really healing, especially for people who've been through grief. It's beautiful and touching and healing and loving. I think that's really important. We don't see enough of it. We need more playfulness and see that in marriages, because it's there. Plenty of marriages have it. And again, I am a scientist, so I approach this scientifically. How do I keep my people safe? It's absolutely essential for me that my actors, my crew, everybody on this production stay safe, because I'm in charge. I want everyone to come out of this happy and healthy and whole. So, we have very strict COVID protocols. We went probably overboard in some ways, over and above what SAG and Directors Guild and all of those require, and really put our all into it. And that's something that meant a lot to us, and I'm happy to say it worked out really well. We did more with filtration, with the ventilation. We took that up a notch, really, to make sure that that was, with HEPA filters, and really kind of went in CO2 detectors. We just notched it up, and we also did more of the face shields as well, not just the mask, but the face shields, particularly in Zone A. Of course, you always need them. But we spread them out into the other zone as well, and I think that was just a smart way to go about it. You do them 3 times a week, according to SAG and Directors Guild and the various other guilds. That's what's recommended, so that we followed through on. And it's, of course, for small production, it's very difficult because it's incredibly expensive. And you'd think by now that testing would be free, but sadly it's not. So it takes a huge chunk out of the budget of an already small budget. So it makes it really challenging, but everybody stepped up, everybody worked harder, and really helped me direct in a way that I'm very excited by. They were really hugely supportive and helpful. But I'd love for you to come and see this movie. Come join us at the theater or online, and we'll look forward to you joining our Me and Mommy Expo. Thanks, guys.